Hello, my name is Casey Edwards. It is January 6th. Let me see this way. There we go. January 6th of 2026. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about cystic fibrosis. It's for my Disease of the Cell project. We're going to discuss cellular mechanisms, the genetics, kind of symptoms, therapeutic advances, and all that. Let's get into it. Okay, so an introduction and overview. Cystic fibrosis, or CF, is a genetic disorder. It's caused by mutations in the CFTR gene on chromosome 7. The disease affects chloride ion transport in epithelial cells. It leads to abnormal mucus production, so it kind of lines the epithelial cells with this large amount of mucus. And the thick mucus accumulates in the lungs, but also the pancreas, intestines, and sweat glands. It is one of the most common life-shortening autosomal recessive diseases in the United States. It's a recessive disease, as it says, so you need 2 copies, one from each parent. And chronic infections, inflammation, and nutrient malabsorption are common complications. If you look over in the diagram on the right, you see some healthy lungs with a clear airway, and then the lungs affected by CF, and you can see that airway is filled with that mucus, and it makes it kind of hard to breathe. So genetics and heritability. The gene involved is called the CFTR gene, or cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator protein. It's located on chromosome 7. The inheritance pattern, it is autosomal recessive, so 2 defective copies needed to develop CF. You need those 2. The mutation type. There's over 2,000 variants of the mutation causing it. The most common is the delta F508 deletion. It removes a phenylalanine at position 508. However, there are thousands of variants, which makes this a hard disease to cure. And so genetic testing can be done via DNA sequencing or sweat chloride tests, which kind of helps to diagnose the disease. And then carrier info. So heterozygotes, meaning you have a dominant allele and a recessive allele, usually show no symptoms, but they can pass the allele to offspring. Children inheriting 1 defective gene from each parent, so 2 copies of that recessive gene, will develop cystic fibrosis. But 1 defective gene, 1 recessive allele, only makes them carriers. So the cellular basis of cystic fibrosis. Normal CFTR protein moves chloride ions across cell membranes into the outside of the cell, and it regulates water and mucus viscosity. As you can see on the left, this section shows the CFTR protein on the membrane, and it's letting those chloride ions out. And then on the right, you see that the protein affected by cystic fibrosis, and it is either blocked by mucus, so the chloride ions can't escape, or the CFTR protein is closed. And when it's closed, the chloride ions can't escape, and it makes the mucus even thicker. So mutated CFTR is misfolded or non-functional, and it prevents that chloride transport, and it leads to thick, sticky mucus accumulation in the lungs, pancreas, and intestines. So in the lungs, the mucus traps bacteria, which can lead to chronic infection and persistent inflammation. In the pancreas, the blocked enzyme secretion from the mucus leads to poor nutrient absorption and malnutrition. Some other organs affected are the liver, intestines, sweat glands, and it causes obstruction or salt imbalance. Okay. Symptoms and phenotypes. The respiratory symptoms are a chronic cough, wheezing, frequent lung infections, and shortness of breath. Digestive symptoms include fatty stools, poor weight gain, malnutrition, and pancreatic insufficiency. Reproductive symptom is that it does cause male infertility due to the absence of vas deferens. And in the sweat glands, there's a high salt concentration in the sweat. And the severity of the disease varies based on the mutation type. As we said, there are a lot of mutation types, and also modifier genes. So diagnosis and screening. There is the sweat chloride test. It's a standard diagnostic test. It measures salt concentration in sweat. Here's a diagram on the right describing it. It's where you stimulate the sweat glands and collect it onto a filter paper and analyze the chloride concentration. If chloride concentrations are over 60 millimoles per liter, it's diagnostic of the disease. There's also genetic testing. It identifies specific CFTR mutations for confirmation. It's an expensive test though. Newborn screening. It's routine in many countries to detect CF early. Also, positive results often require specialist consultation to move forward with treatments. And then early diagnosis enables better management and improves quality of life. So doing these diagnostic tests are really important at a young age. Okay, some current treatments. So there's symptom management, airway clearance techniques, pancreatic enzyme replacement, and antibiotics for lung infections. These are kind of just band-aids. They don't actually cure cystic fibrosis. They don't actually help change anything about the gene or the protein. It's just kind of putting a band-aid on the symptoms, so helping the patient to breathe better, helping their pancreas to function better, stuff like that. There's also CFTR modulators. These are these 3 drugs here, and these drugs improve the function of the defective CFTR protein, improving chloride transport. As you can see in the diagram on the bottom, the CFTR protein is either not getting to the cell surface into that membrane, or it's closed, not allowing the chloride ions to leak out. And the CFTR drug modulators, they're correctors. So they come in and they open those protein channels and they allow the chloride to escape, and it kind of lessens the mucus and the thickness. So also lung transplantation is an option. It's an option for severe lung disease if the lungs are compromised. And treatments aim to reduce symptoms, improve lung function, and extend life expectancy. Emerging therapies and research. There's gene therapy. It's a potential to deliver functional CFTR genes to patient cells. mRNA therapy is still in research stages. It's very new. It's similar to the COVID-19 RNA vaccines, kind of changing RNA. And then there's CRISPR gene editing. It's very experimental, but it's an approach to correct CFTR mutations at the DNA level, meaning it would completely take away cystic fibrosis if it was fully successful. Instead of just putting a Band-Aid, it would actually change the DNA to express the protein correctly and take away those mutations. So focus is on therapies that reduce mucus viscosity, prevent infection, and restore organ function. And research is still ongoing. Cure is not right on the horizon, unfortunately. And clinical trials are underway for several new therapies. So we are making progress at this time. The prognosis and outlook. Median life expectancy is about 50 years old with current therapies. Early detection of the disease and also CFTR modulators, those drugs we talked about, improve outcomes significantly. Ongoing research may lead to curative therapies in the future, like CRISPR. And then multidisciplinary care is essential, so targeting the care at a multitude of angles, like pulmonary therapy, nutrition, infection control, the antibiotics we talked about, helping the digestive system as well as the respiratory system is really helpful because it goes at the disease at a bunch of different angles. And the goal of future treatments is to target root genetic cause, not just symptoms. And just a note at the bottom here, I put the movie 5 Feet Apart. It's about these 2 people that have cystic fibrosis. And what it's important to note is that most cystic fibrosis people are told to stay away from each other because their severe lung infections and susceptibility to infection. It's dangerous to be around because you can spread those infections to each other, and they have that lowered immune system because of the mucus that's trapped in their lungs. So that's what that movie is about. And in conclusion, cystic fibrosis is a genetic cell-based disease affecting the lungs, pancreas, and other organs. It's caused by the CFTR mutations, which leads to defective chloride transport, which leads to thick mucus. Current treatments manage symptoms and improve quality of life, including the CFTR modulators. And emerging therapies. So there's gene therapy, RNA therapy, CRISPR, and they may one day provide a cure. Hopefully CRISPR could change the DNA like we talked about. And understanding cellular and genetic mechanisms is key to developing effective treatments, especially because this disease has so many different variations in the mutations that cause it. It's really key to understanding all those different mutations and how to target each one differently to cure the disease. Okay, and then here are all my references. There's primary sources and secondary sources. Thank you so much for listening.